Okay. I have a question for Marta. And actually, I'm wondering if the choice of color in the surfaces in the birth room, if they were imposed by the hospital, or there were a research or a consultation before applying them. Because for the hospital in the what is the name? Okay, Algeciras. I know it's related with the sea elements and live elements, but what about the others? They were imposed by the administration of the hospital, or how they were chosen?
Thank you. The first project, we were ordered to put in a blue and pink, baby girl and boy. So we have the challenge to think a harmonious environment through color that we should never chosen. So what we decided is to create a neutral atmosphere and to touch with some colors, like only in some places. So everything is in white or beige or whatever. So then we can put the color. It shown us that the color is not so important for us, but the harmony of all the context. So that's why we don't mind which color we can use. But for example, in Algeciras, colors were chosen around the sea, but also around the colors of the company that had that tiles. So there's this one. So you have 8, and you have to choose 3 or 4. So you're not free just to choose what would you like. So at the end, our way of working is generating a neutral environment and use the color as something to get to do something different, but not in a very intense way. That's why any color can fix for us.
Thank you. Anyone would like to ask, question, reflect?
I have a very mundane question for Marta. Sorry. What was that? Slowly. Okay, sorry. I noticed in some of your plans that you had a shared birth tub between rooms. And I was curious how that worked practically and functionally in those spaces.
This is not very common in Spain. Angela knew that there were some hospitals in Austria that they shared the birth pool. And first time we talked about that, everybody said, no, it's like, no. So, but when there's no money to the project, and you say, okay, why don't we share two, for example, in one of the projects, 2 birth pools in 4 rooms? So how does it work? It's easy. You can come into from one room or the other, but if you use from one room, the other is closed, and if not, that's the opposite. So it's easy. It works very well. The doors are good acoustic, have good acoustic finishes, because if not, you are listening to the other person, the other mother. But at the end, it's a good way to optimize the resource, the money, and also you have, for example, if you have 9, 10 birth rooms, you have 4 that are able to use a birth pool, because birth pools in Spain is question of marketing as well. we have birth pool. No one knows how to use it, but we have birth pool. So women ask for, women can choose the hospital. They can go wherever they want. So women choose a hospital with birth pools, but if they only have one, sometimes women can choose. So bit by bit, it becomes a good option in public hospitals.
But it's kind of luck of the draw if someone else is using the tub at the time that you want it.
Yeah, you have
whoever gets there first.
4 opportunities to use it.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's better than having only 2 rooms with 2 birth pools.
Sure.
But of course, if there are 3 people at the same time, you have to say no to any of them. But
Or what I've seen in the US, where you have an entire labor and delivery unit in a hospital with 1 tub to be shared.
Yeah.
So thank you.
thanks, Steve.
It's like you and your luck. I have okay, sure.
Is it on now? Yes. Oh, thank you for 4 fantastic presentations. I am really deeply inspired. Thank you very much. I have 2 questions. One for you, Grace. That was so nice to see how you brought us through so many different cases and systematically. Is it possible to find that big review and use it for us? That's the first one. And then the other one, Anka, this is just a fantastic example of why architects and why we're sitting here and why the feeling of space. I mean, Swiss architects, Peter Zumthor. I mean, some of these spaces remind me of these really deep feelings that he's also able to bring forth. And also Raphael Moneo, I mean, he is also using this language, and it's so nice to see. I can hear my midwife colleagues in Denmark or collaborators, and they would say, "Oh, these material tests, they sound fantastic." Are you doing that together with hygienic personnel on hospitals, or is it how is the clinical test value, if I could say, of these tests? So that was 2.
I'll go first. Yes, you can, and I can share it with you, Esben. I've also got a few copies here printed today if anyone's interested. And in this report, and similar to this presentation, I really tried to take it through that continuum of birth spaces and overlap the case studies and the precedents and the images. So yes, happy to share that one. Yeah.
We can leave it on, maybe. Maybe we can leave it on. Materials and whether they can be used in hospitals and if there is evidence. So in Switzerland is very different from Austria, for example, when it comes to use of materials in healing spaces and healing environments. And obviously in Switzerland, they've used wood and other natural materials ever since. And it's no problem in the birthing room for the floor to be made of wood, for example. And there is evidence that wood, kale, I mean, in Morocco and in other cultures, they've used kale for centuries and thousands of years because of these qualities those materials have. So even there is scientific evidence, and there is also lived evidence. So we have the knowledge, I feel. In Austria, the regulations are very strict, and one would never have the opportunity to take a natural material in the birthing room currently. But I've seen old birthing rooms in hospitals in Austria, and they were made of wood, and all of a sudden it's not possible anymore. So I feel it's kind of a paradigm shift, that hygiene is not a plastic material that's been disinfected and is dead. It's literally dead, and bad bacteria can thrive very easily. We know that from all of the cases of sicknesses and illnesses we have in hospitals. But as a healthy superficie and is made of, is alive and it has resistance, it can work with those bacteria that's bad. It's like a microbiome, like our gut, that is alive, and it can proactively treat those germs and yeah. So it has not. It's so funny because we're talking about hospitals and medical environments and science, and we have this knowledge, and it has not arrived there in the spaces. It's very interesting for me to, yeah. Wake up, yeah. And maybe we should do, that was part of an idea of myself, to do the PhD on this topic, to do more material science and create more evidence just for birth, because we're not talking about an intensive care unit. It's a physiological process we're talking about, and the women are healthy, at least. We could divide also, and even I feel, even if women would have risk pregnancies, those materials would help them even more to regulate and their bodies to, yeah. We're going there.
May I just only, I'm really fan of you from today to the end of my days, because everything you say is perfect. About hygienic materials, I think it's the same than the baby going through the birth canal with all the bacteria and so on, or the C-section, which, you know, they can clean the baby and the baby will be perfect for you, but he's losing the benefits of going through them. You know, so I think natural materials are more or less like that. If we only think on, you know, clean and perfect, okay, let's use plastic. You can use any cleaner, but it's not the healing way to understand materials and architecture.
And I would like to add something that just popped up, because I think Monia has a kind of, I don't know, a list of 100 studies that she could share, or we could share with you, if those midwives would be interested in, and there we go.
Is it on? Yeah. Well, as a non-architect, and I've never been to an architecture conference before, so I'm quite sitting a little outside the circle, even though I'm a midwife. And my observation is that I hear a lot of the same principles coming in all the presentations by architects that you've all discovered, but also have some differences, but a lot of commonality of best practices and the things to consider. And you also know what the pushback will be, you know, hygiene, or whether or not they can see, whether or not the clinicians can see the equipment they're used to, and what the questions will be. And it seems like it's high time for you to put together I hate to use the word marketing, but it is kind of a, you know, and I don't think it can be just white paper, because a white paper sits in a place which is just a bunch of experts talking to each other again, or white paper will inform other architects, but not necessarily the health system. And so maybe it starts there, but I think if you can create a global best practices document from all these years of experience, and then work with a knowledge mobilization specialist to see what's the receptor site. I mean, we're in a global conversation about sustainability healthy materials, getting away from plastics. We are in another conversation about community-centered care, indigenous knowledge, person-centered. So I think you can capitalize on those movements to make your message under these different topics where it looks very professional and, you guys you're all the experts, and here we can tell you in this space what needs to happen. I just think, let's go.
Marilyn?
Oh, I think I've got a question for Grace. How was your experience of interpreting the emotional design brief in the actual structure of the hospital in Singleton? What kind of conversations did the architects have about those ideas?
It was, I would say it was a really provoking conversation, and I think provoking as well in the sense of working with Chris Vlatko, who's an amazing architect, but a male, and he was quite aware of where he sat and his space to learn, and then mine as well. But I think the emotional design brief was so pivotal because it talked to the quotes and it included everything, and it really broke it down in as well an architectural language that we were able to use and relate to, and you could draw from even different typologies that has been designed to. It's like, oh, okay, well, in education we've done this and this to achieve this, and etc. And then it also, I think, provided us with the tools and the words to then. I got the opportunity to dive even deeper and go into all of the research and papers, but I didn't even know, I wouldn't have known words to search for before the emotional design brief. So I think there was many layers to how it was helpful, and then I touched on it briefly, but I think it really was a great reference document that can be used from the start and then right at the finish, similar to the bud set where you're sitting there and you're going, all right, well, have we achieved this? And it's such a reference piece and a piece that we had to meet, and we had to prove before it was being built in a similar conversation, in a similar meeting to budgets and everything else, how we're achieving these key factors. So I really think it's such a fundamental piece. And I thank you for it, Marilyn. Yeah.
Okay, so anybody can answer this question if it applies, but it's around shifting volume. So for anybody that did case studies or has done architectural work in a hospital or in any kind of remote setting, what is that process of understanding the shift in volume of certain types of birth practices? So where you're maybe in a hospital and you're changing the configuration from a standard, assessment and labor and delivery ward into one that is more of a birth center focus. How are you talking about that at a strategic level with your, is it the C-suite or the midwife group who's leading the project? And how are they saying, yes, let's do this? We're going to eliminate maybe 6 birthing, labor and delivery rooms to accommodate 3 or 4 of these labor and delivery birthing rooms. How are those conversations going, and how is that business plan kind of put in place? Anybody?
But first thing we always say is that we are going to use the same space. Nicoletta told about that. We are going to use the same square meters to attend the same number of births? That's the first question. So nothing is going to change. You're not going to lose anything. So they make them feel, okay, quite calm. On the other hand, midwives and equipments always think they need more space, more. But births in Spain are decreasing, very, very quick. But they need a room more. They need. So what sometimes we work with the other spaces which are not birth room as places for meeting or working, or sometimes we find a room which is only the gynecologists, those obstetricians can go there, even to smoke. Can you imagine? So they have the best window, and it's like no, it's not possible. So when you think not only on the birth room but in all the area, and you propose something that, and you think also in wellness for people will work there. For example, natural light is also for workers always, or sound, or circadian light during night, or so many things that, because women is in a hospital maybe, 12 hours or 12 days. But people that work there, maybe they're working 20 years. So imagine the violence they are feeling in that horrible spaces. So if you tell that things, sometimes it works, sometimes not. But I think the difference is when you have someone in front of you that understands things and say, we don't mind if you are using wood, or you are, we don't mind that all that regulations that are important for the rest of the people. And that means an innovative, mind. And when you have the midwives, you have the directors of the hospital, and it works, project will go. Because there's not a question of money. These projects are cheaper than much others because they buy so many gadgets for the surgery room that these are cheaper. What about talking about yours that are only with the hands? It's not a question of money, it's a question of mentality. So when you get the proper person, the project will go alone. If not, just go to another.
For me, there are, in the cases I showed before, there are two different situations. One is, for example, Grosseto Hospital. They have an idea to reorganize, okay? So we, as researchers and university, we enter in the briefing phase, the first one. So we had more opportunities to suggest also, for example, the birth center, there was a discussion, 2 rooms, 4 rooms, how many, because it was a conversation among all different departments. So I think the Grosseto Hospital was a very nice co-design process because everyone was involved from the beginning, and so with different needs. So in this case, we suggest, and there was someone smart that received this indication and this suggestion, and was possible to change. For example, in Reggio Emilia Hospital was another situation because we arrived later when the first preliminary project was already done. So they decided, the administration of the hospital decided that the birth center should be in that place, have 5 rooms from the beginning. So we arrived later, we tried to work on the existing So I think it depends the level of changing and the conversation depend on what stage of the project you face with the topic and the argument.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. This is sort of piggybacking on what Susie just asked, but as architects, when you're trying to land the project, whether it be the renovation, reconfiguration of space, an adjacent birth center to a hospital, what have you found to be most effective to bring the decision makers who probably know very little about physiology and anatomy of birth and how that positively, and how addressing that in environment leads to positive outcomes? What have you found to be most effective in sort of educating them and bringing them up to speed on all of these issues that allow them to sort of be like, okay, let's do this, right? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yes, for me in Reggio Emilia was very interesting. In Reggio Emilia was very interesting because at the beginning they didn't know very well what was a birth center, but so we passed the first 2 meetings to tell them the case studies, like Grace did today, that I visited in UK. I visited like 10, 12 case studies of birth center, and so we passed hours to talk about them with images, with explanation, and so they recharged them and say, yes, we would like something like this, because in the healthcare professional, I think there are no knowledge about what happened in the architectural field outside Italy. So I think it is important to show them something realized. And this was the trigger that was important for them. And yes.
It's not so important to take them through the history and all of that, but really to show, here's an example in this country or this region.
Yes, this works well because because the other thing is what kind of advantages we professionals have, or we administration of the hospital have, if we do this operation. Is something related only to the beauty? That is the first one, important things, but also what more? So explain that there is a relation between the 2 things is also important, because they want to know.
Right, so if we build it, they will come, as they did in this particular project elsewhere, sort of.
And may I share that it reminds me, I thought, wow, okay, this is my life. It's not just maybe one talk or conversation with one person you would like to convince, but you're trying to, and you try to raise awareness within this person. But what I experienced from this activist group that we initiated 10 years ago, it's a whole region that we're trying to prepare for a birth center, for autonomous midwifery-led care, and it takes years to go somewhere, and different skills and skills at a higher level. So you have to be very flexible, and you have to have the research background and to show evidence, and then maybe experience. You can say, I did this and that, and then the marketing part, and you go and say, look at the numbers, but it's really, and yeah, so you have to be so smart on so many different layers, and yeah, it takes a whole life.
Designing a museum or a library or police station or something that people are very familiar with. They know what these typologies do.
And never forget about the gender. Like, it's women, it's what we're talking about. So you have to be quick in answering and so good with argumenting and yeah, giving them reasons.
I think
Just a moment. I used to go with some slides of with the garage model and the woman with the open legs and everybody looking at that, and I say, "Do you want that?" No. So okay. So if some people say okay, and some people say, "Oh, you're the strange woman," so that's. Yeah, but
I think that what strikes me, and I'm super excited about, we've heard so many very compelling presentations over the course of the past 3 days, and I feel like it would be really helpful to have a template for those of us who are trying to make the case, a presentation template. What are the talking points? Whether it's from a design and beauty and spirituality standpoint, but also the marketing and the branding and the outcomes, like something very persuasive for us to, we can modify it to our specific needs around a project. But I'm thinking about that too, as I go into client presentations, and I'm going to try to make the case for something, innovative and revolutionary. It's scary to me because I know I'm going to be met with a lot of skepticism. But just to have kind of if we as a network could create a resource for us to use in those situations, I think it could be really helpful.
Everyone can relate to the guy with his ass hanging out of the gown and the auto body mechanic analogy. I mean, I think that's everyone can relate to. So I like that idea. Sorry. That was all I wanted to say.
I want Latif, go. I just wanted to also say that the brief, the word that Nicoletta mentioned, made this with my brain because it is the architectural brief that comes first. So yeah, opening doors and then putting a brief on the table with evidence, with all of it, but the brief is the base of it all. So yeah, very important.
I've got one question for maybe all of you. There is this strand of argument, going on from a certain quarter to the effect that the physical environment of birth only contributes a marginal, outcome to, bad outcomes generally. And then today we've seen some beautiful examples of case studies, renovations, generally. Is there a way that probably you've gone back by way of feedback or post-occupancy evaluation that you've carried on in all of these, or some of these renovations? Is there a way to check whether these are actually, this renovation, refurbishment, whether they are working for the women or the midwives? I'm talking of, because everything that we are doing here, or that we've talked about, it needs to be taken back to the design of the space. And so how do we ensure that what we've done, in terms of the practical aspect, whether it's really working or not? Thank you.
Do you want to say? Just measuring, asking. But the truth is, in the practice of architecture, we don't have time to research results, and it's not paid, So our main enemies now are time to develop a project, which is that's why when I was listening to you, I say, oh my God, time to just to think a project is really good. So we don't have no time or money to ask for results, but I think the only possibility to say what's happening is just measuring and using my eldest son to do my graphics that I shown. But it's not a solution. It's a way, but it's not a solution. When we show the results of one of our projects, which they have 3 times less of C-sections than in the rest of the same hospital. You know what happened in that hospital? They say, oh, that's good. It will continue in that way, but only here. They don't want to change the rest. Even they have all the statistics and all the results, because it's not a question of evidence, it's a question of a paradigm, a mental change. So you can go with, saving money, all the best results in the world. This hospital has the best results in Spain, and doesn't matter. So it's like, go. But I think if you don't measure, how is the sentence? If you don't measure, you don't know. So that's my answer.
For the project that I showed you, the pilot project in Switzerland, we teamed up. So there's a Swiss midwifery university inside of this project in the core team, and they will do the research afterwards. So they will evaluate the building and everything. They do have theses, doctorate, PhDs on it. So this will happen there. So it is ensured that what we did there will be based on research, which is quite nice, I think. And mentioning time and design and what we do have time for and costs, and I also wanted to say that the work that I'm doing, my midwifery practice pays my architecture studio. I don't earn yet with those projects. It's all just for the benefit, to go somewhere. It's wholeheartedly going somewhere, but it's not, to earn money with.
Architect is a very expensive hobby.
And architecture for women, by women, about women is the lowest.
No, I completely agree that we need post-occupancy evaluation later. Yes. But this is a general topic for all what we build. So I don't know, it's true that it's difficult to have resources to do this at the end, but maybe something can be done with qualitative interview or other kind of verification and test. I don't know if someone later.
Maybe with interviews, maybe,
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
It starts to have 4 case studies there. There could be 25. You all help make that. We will get the people, we need to add. You have some of the statistics we already need to put on your case studies, Marta. You show it here, we put it there, and we build that, all of that. That's fine.
Maybe
I just want to make, midwives have been saying that for years. We're too busy catching babies, so we can't, work on the research. We can't tell the story because we're doing and now I'm hearing that from architects. And you know what? There are epidemiologists, there are researchers, there are graduate students, there are people who are dying to get grant money to do these kinds of things. And we have to stop thinking about our silos and we have to think about how can we make this happen with the people who are the statisticians, who will look and, I love qualitative research, and I think the voices of women are so important, but you need to have numbers in order to change in the dominant system, right? So you can now, it seems like there's so many examples even in this room. It's not just one case study, it's multiple case studies and hundreds, maybe thousands of women who have been affected. And so you can it seems to me there are 2 strategies. One is you can actually look at outcomes, because you can combine all of that data with some intentionality. You can design a study that looks at it, whether it's evaluation or whatever, but a multi-site evaluation. And we can get we need to look beyond, like who wants to do that kind of thing, and whether it's public health or it's, planning, cost effectiveness. There's so many, seems to me, different ways to approach it, but we have to get those colleagues to come walk alongside us, right? And then I think you have your full marketing package. You have the case studies of beautiful photographs, you can make a monograph, you can have a website, you can have, you can mobilize it, but it doesn't have to be done. We don't have to do everything, right? You're already doing so much. And the midwives don't, and the architects don't, but there are other people who can do this kind of evaluation and should, and it's possible, I think.
May I say something? I think communication and conversations and a TED Talk can change things much more quicker than researchers. So from people which are out of the university and out of the research movement work, I think there are other ways to connect with people and change minds, and I think they are related to communication and conversations, talks, or congress, colloquiums, and so on. So I think there's like more quick, real, and maybe it works for another people which is outside waiting for, for all that knowledge.
And consumer demand. I completely agree with you. There's got to be a multi-pronged approach where you have to think about who are the audiences and who are going to really make those differences. But now we live in this internet age where the women and families will ask for it if they see it, if it's out there, if it's visible, right?
We will be Anyone would like to commit? We will be wrapping up our discussion with Kim. Last question.
I have an example of how we can de-siloize, and so I'm in the process of putting together a panel at the Center for Architecture in New York City about what it would take to make birth centers part of the public building portfolio. And the chief architect of the New York City Department of Design and Construction is completely on board with this idea. And she connected me with an organization underneath the umbrella of the New York City DDC called Town and Gown, which partners architects with policy students at different universities in New York City. And her point was, this is a great idea, but we need to figure out where the funding would come from. And so we need to follow the money for funding for other maternal health initiatives in New York City. So in the spring, we worked with Syracuse policy students on a 6-week capstone project for this. And now we're working on a year-long project with New York University Wagner, which is a public policy student program, to collect this data. So that's just one example. And this was all new to me. It just sort of happened organically. But that's sort of one example. And I can imagine this would also be a really valuable resource to have on the website, just to give people ideas of who to go to kind of figure out how to get this done. Because before this just sort of happened, I had no idea. I said, we need, how do we do this? I don't know. I'm an architect. I'm a doula. I don't know. So that's just one example. But I think absolutely we need to de-siloize and use these cross disciplines to advance this cause forward. So.
Go into the action.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for our speakers, our participants.